boy, did this conversation go in a different way than I thought it would.
How did you think it was going to go?
Well, I really thought we were going to talk about nation building and based on some of the notions of how our country is going to move forward in the next several decades vis-a-vis our military power, our economic strength, and how you leverage the two. And I just thought it was very interesting. You know, whether or not a nation or a society becomes a superpower is often tied to its economic strength and its military strength, and there's direct correlations. And we looked at all of, we studied about the Truman Doctrine and the Eisenhower Doctrine, and then way up to the sort of unofficial Bush Doctrine.
The half-baked Bush Doctrine.
Well, that remains to be seen. But anyhow,
well, he didn't express it. I mean, it was expressed for him.
Yes, exactly.
On his behalf.
I will say, interestingly enough, I did have an opportunity last week to hear a lecture with Presidents Clinton and Bush. It was just the two of them on the stage with a moderator. It was fascinating. I'm in the 10th row, and there are the presidents. And the thing about George Bush, which I found quite fascinating, is he is a bright guy. There is no question. He's matter of fact and very direct, but he allowed others to kind of take over within his administration. Like, he would set an agenda.
Dick Cheney didn't take over, did he?
Well, but what the president said, and I think this happened, this is part of his legacy, he would set an agenda. He was all about agenda setting, and he used that term during his lecture, but then he would let others within his administration carry out his agenda. And they may have carried it out in a way that he intended, they may not have, but he was boxed into certain things. Bull Clinton, on the other hand, not only is he very bright, he was brilliant. Both of them, I think, were far above the average American, but I thought that some of the things that Bush said were quite fascinating, given the legacy that he has thus far.
You know, this idea of nation building is part of what we're inevitably part of what we're talking about. Can we build the rest of the world in the same way as we attempted to with, let's say, the post-World War II?
Germany and Japan?
The Germany, Japan, the
Marshall Plan, yes.
That was nation building writ huge, huger than ever
Absolutely, we
before.
cannot do that.
You have to remember,
We have the
George,
resources to do that.
is when you were sending money to France under the Marshall Plan, you had a country that had an infrastructure that had been destroyed. Building an infrastructure is easier than creating one.
We're building markets, too.
You had engineers. You had factories that could be rebuilt. All of that existed, and so it was a question of rebuilding.
And then
what we have found with foreign aid is that starting from scratch is much more difficult.
And then in those communities, they had the human capital who was ready and willing and able to take over once the basic infrastructure was complete.
But not only starting from scratch, the cultural differences. I mean, there were not major cultural differences between the American and the French cultures.
Oh,
Now let me say this. As opposed, say, to the American and the Nigerian culture, or the American and the yes, you understand what
Japanese,
everything is relative. Now we agreed on that.
Yes.
And so, for the French, they were happy to have us come and rebuild. And many of the countries where we want to go and start building, there is a faction, there's some traditionalists who like the old way of doing things and see the structures as really eradicating a culture. So there's some cultural differences that come into play there. We think we're doing something wonderful, but it may be perceived by the people on the ground in that culture as being invasive and arrogant.
Well, it's not just a question of culture. It's also a question of just simple raw power. One of the problems we've run into in Afghanistan is you go up to a village sheik or a village leader and you say, we want to create a democracy. What did he just hear? You want to replace him with somebody else.
Right.
And he's not going to be very kind to that thought, no matter how you sugar dress or how many weapons you give him or how you pay him or what have you. So you may get agreement up front, but afterwards he's sitting back thinking, well, why should I help demote myself?
Right.
I'm not going to do that. And I think that's a real problem.
Democracy is intriguing to me. It seems to me like mom and apple pie. Maybe it's terrific, maybe it isn't. I'm not so sure that I think as quickly by reflex as democracy is always good as I might have 25 years ago.
It's relative.
You're relative as hell today.
It is all relative.
It's relative to the culture, to the perspective, to the people. I mean, it may not be the answer for everyone.
The fundamental error that we made in the 1990s, and this comes right out of Dick Cheney, with the Bush administration, but this comes right out of Dick Cheney's writings in the 1990s, is that democracy is the natural occurrence of humankind. If you remove a dictator like Saddam Hussein, democracy will naturally, immediately grow. It will just evolve.
It will?
Yes, well, that was the assumption that was made in 2003. And in 2006, we see how bad that assumption was.
You know what? Democracy does happen, but look what happened in Egypt. You know, there was, and I think that went to your point, Sarah, that we've been propping up governments that may not necessarily be promoting the American democratic ideal. So we were propping up the Egyptian government for how long? They were friendly to the United States. They were a relatively stabilizing force in the Middle East. And now it's gone, and it's replaced with a group that are essentially in bed with terrorist organizations.
But
I know that's a
where
question
history-
for another.
Here's where history
But they
comes
were
into play.
democratically
And it's
elected.
cultural.
History
There's
is
a
more
lot of
history.
And
cultural and
those people were
religious.
democratically
That does-
elected.
No, they weren't. That does not make them democracy. Read Samuel Huntington on the well, any case, there's a criteria for when a country becomes democracy, and Egypt isn't anywhere near the.
Right.
Hey, remember, why did we become Egypt's friend? Because Egypt was an ally of the Soviet Union, and when Egypt said, we don't like the Soviet Union anymore, we jumped on the opportunity. The Soviet Union's been gone for 20 years.
Yes.
Now we have the bizarre thing where you'll have U.S.-made tanks in Israel facing off against U.S.-made tanks in Egypt, all of them going through U.S. training.
Exactly.
That's not good for the United States.
David, you mentioned
Depends
Samuel-
on which side has the bigger tanks.
You mentioned Samuel
They
Huntington.
all have the same.
Yeah, I'm curious about this. Some political scientists love to hate Samuel Huntington.
Well, he has written lots and lots of stuff. Some of the stuff from the early 60s.
We died
Well,
recently.
but he has written lots of stuff.
But he's
Can
not
I ask,
still
can I ask
writing.
a structural question now that has nothing to do with this? When are we taping next? Next week?
Same time, same station.